Hi everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with part 2 of the Simon Says May 2018 card kit, Kind Heart. So, again, what I really liked about this kit is the ability to be simple. Cardstock, stickers. And they can really work and still make beautiful cards. So for card number 6, I'm going to use the sentiment, "You are simply the best ever." And I'm going to stamp that onto some vellum. Once I have that stamped, I'm going to use my white embossing powder and I'm going to heat set that. Now, one of the things when it comes to this card kit were the sentiments were very big. So you either had these really large sentiments or you have these really tiny sentiments that you could build up onto some things. So it's a good stamp set to have for your stash because of those sentiments. But at the same time, I also think, you wouldn't use these a lot, especially the one sentiment. It's huge. So, okay, back to the card. So now I'm going to take 2 different dies. I'm using my Lawn Fawn Stitch Rectangle for the pattern paper, and I'm using my Penny Black Antique Frames for the sentiment and the vellum. So I'm going to adhere the pattern paper onto the gray cardstock that came with the kit. There was, they were already cut down and scored card bases. Now, this is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 side folding card base. Once I have that adhered with my tape runner, I'm going to just put some glue dots behind the sentiment and place that on top of the pattern paper. And surprisingly, it doesn't get lost. I'm going to use an acrylic block to set down on that while it dries, and then I'm going to grab the puffy stickers and I'm going to add some hearts around the sentiment, which will also help to hold it down. So there was a method to my madness on that. And here I'm just looking to see if I can add any more because these were really cute stickers. Who doesn't love a heart? And that's card number 6. For card 7, this one just took time when it came to cutting the paper. So I pulled out my Tim Holtz Tonic Studios cutter, and I'm going to cut this pattern paper. You see the space in between the bookshelves, or the way the books and the planners are lined, there's a space in between. So I'm going to cut along those lines. I'm going to grab a card base, just a blank card base that hasn't been cut down or anything, and I'm going to arrange these going up with a little bit of space in between, but I want to make sure that, I was going to go to the right, and I ended up going to the left, so I was making sure that there was no repeated images on top of each other, because I thought I was going to do this another way. No. So I'm arranging these as we go up, and the space in between each of these strips will vary. Don't want them to be the same. So they could be 1/4 of an inch, it could be 1/2 an inch. One of them I think is 3/4 of an inch. Just to straddle across this paper. I'm using my Nuvo liquid adhesive to adhere these strips down onto this card base. And I'm just making sure that they're going on straight, at least. And I'm using my grid mat below to do that, to help me guide and put those pieces in place. Once that's done, I'm going to use one of the largest of the Lawn Fawn Stitch Rectangle dies. And I'm going to run that through my die machine. And there is my panel. Now, this panel is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 panel, so it's going to cover the entire front of the card base that I chose. And again, card bases are always 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card bases, 9 out of 10. So I'm going to adhere that with my liquid glue because it's thick. You've got 2 layers of paper there. And now I'm going to stamp my sentiment onto another piece of cardstock white. And this is the huge one. I wish we lived closer. Pretty sure we would do everything together. And that's very true. but how many times you're going to use the sentiment. So, I do think it is a great sentiment. I love the font. I just love the look of it, but it is rather large. So, I'm going to heat set that, and I'm using my Nuvo silver embossing powder. I've been trying the Nuvo embossing powders out. So far, I do like the powders. I didn't get their fine detail. These are just their regular powders. I know I am a fan of their black. Very much so. So I also used a Lawn Fawn stitch rectangle to cut out the sentiment, and I'm going to use some foam, fun foam to prop this up. Again, I do think using the fun foam is better. It's a more solid piece, and also it is cheaper in the long run because I don't want to use all my double-sided foam tape. So I'm using I got a lot of questions in the last video when it came to this roll of double-sided tape. This double-sided tape I get from uline.com. It's 2 inches by 60 yards. When I made that purchase, I purchased 2, and I'm still using the first one, and I bought them like 3 years ago. They're pricey. I mean, it's a high ticket price. But to me, that isn't going anywhere. I've tried pulling it apart the next day or even after it gets adhered, and that's just not going to go anywhere. So I do like that double-sided tape. I do use it to put my layers on my cards. I also do use it for my fun foam applications, and I use it for my glitter bases if I want to create a glitter panel. So anyway, that was card 7 because we put it all together. I added some stickers. So for card number 8, I think this one's one of my favorites here. So I'm using one of those card paper, pattern papers where it's a color and it's just variegated because it's a square that's like coming up and floating away. So I used my penny black vintage frame die, and I'm using the sentiment from the second stamp set that came in the kit, I love your kind heart. I'm going to use my Nuvo silver embossing powder again, and I'm going to heat set that. Now, what we're going to do when it comes to this is we're going to use multiple. I figured this was a way to use all 3 of my metallics when it came to my embossing powders. So I pulled out the flower stamps from the stamp set. So the first one I'm using here is the large leaf, and I really do like the look of these flowers. And here I'm using gold. They're basic gold. This isn't anything special. And I'm going to heat set them. Now I got a little bit of a area that had embossing powder that I didn't want, so I just used a very dry brush. As a matter of fact, I have a brush that's dedicated to that, and I just brushed the extra away. I'm going to heat set that, and then we're going to move on to the next color. So now I'm using the small leaf, and I'm just going around, stamping around this upper right-hand corner. This time I'm using the copper from Nuvo, and we're going to heat set that. Now here we're going to add just one more. Now what's great when we use multiple embossing powders, what I like is even if we go over another section that's embossed, it holds the color that you just put on. So you can actually layer with embossing powders. And I'm going to look at that and dive into that just a little bit deeper. But it will hold the top powder that you've put on. So it's not like it sinks in or anything else. It does hold the texture as you're doing all of that. So you will see the faint image of the leaf behind the other leaf or one of the flowers that I'm using. The flowers that I am using are the smaller solid ones, not the large one. So I just stamped those around, and now I'm going to come in with the silver. and I'm going to give that a good coating and heat set that. And again, the flowers aren't layered on top of each other, but they are going over the leaves, but you're still seeing the silver that's coming through, which is really cool. And the texture as well. Now you really want to let this air dry. You want to let this cool down. You're going to see me, I may fan it. Okay, no, I took that out. So, you know, I do fan them just to make sure that that is cool so that it doesn't get damaged in any way. You know, your fingernail can go into it, anything. So before, make sure it's cooled down. I used my vintage photo ink around the edges just to give it some shading. I used my double-sided tape in this case, or my double-sided foam tape, to put this down on my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card base. Excuse me. That was card number 8. So card number 9, we're going to make a shaker card. I haven't made a shaker card in a while. So here I'm using a Lawn Fawn Stitch rectangle die, and I grabbed a heart die from my stash, and I just die cut those together. After I have that die cut, I'm going to cut down my background piece, but instead, I'm just going to use the die again. I sometimes do that. I just use the die for the backing, and then I put that whole panel up on my card. Around the heart, I've placed some of my Nuvo liquid adhesive, and I have a piece of acetate that I'm going to put right over the cutout on the panel, making sure, and again, if the glue does come to the front, the liquid glue, it's okay. It's going to dry clear. No one's going to see it. I've double layered my foam tape, and now I'm just going to cut it down and place a solid layer all over the back of my card base. Since I offset the cutout of the opening for the shaker, I just want to make sure that the other areas have enough double-sided foam tape to keep it standing, to keep it up so it doesn't collapse. I'm using my 2 Nuvo sequin packs. The one is Vanilla Delight, and the other one is Victorian Rose hexagons. And that's like a confetti instead of a sequin. So I've placed those inside, and I really filled it. I like putting a lot in my shakers. Just because. Gotta have something to do when you sit there and shake it. After I filled that up, I've set my backing in place on top of the double-sided foam tape. Had to shake it for a while just to play with it, see how it's working. I'm using my Nuvo liquid adhesive, and the reason why mine, it looks like I'm cleaning off the top, is because I'm not putting the cap back on. So it's drying up on the tip of it. Other than that, I've never had a problem with that applicator. So after I've set my panel onto the gray cardstock that came in the kit that was already scored, and again, it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but it's a side folding, I just added another heart to it because the other hearts have their own sentiments there as well. So just by using the pattern paper, it already says all heart, good things, everyday beautiful. So they already have some sentiments, but I just added one more heart that said story. I'm using my glossy accents to cover up some of the other hearts just to give them a glossy look as well. That finishes up card number 9. So for card number 10, this would probably be a great masculine card as well. It could be used for either. So I used one of the, I grabbed a piece of craft cardstock first. I always like to get in the habit of stamping my sentiments first and then setting them aside. I stamped this on a piece of scrap craft cardstock from my stash. I'm using my white embossing powder, and I'm going to heat set that. And as you can see, the sentiment that I used is, hey there, good looking. I'm going to use one of my Lawn Fawn stitch rectangle dies, and I'm going to cut this on an angle. So you can see how that sentiment's kind of going up on an angle, but it's flat. I put the frame die around that. And then I also used one for the blue pattern paper. Again, I'm going to use my fun foam and my double-sided tape to adhere this to the design base and then onto the card base. Again, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, top folding. I'm going to set that down, and then I'm going to set the sentiment, again, on an angle. So we still have some interest, some dimension going on here. I am using my double-sided foam tape so that I can prop that panel up onto my card design. And then once that's set, and you can tell it's kind of centered towards the bottom, but kind of centered. And then I'm going to grab my double denim and my dark walnut Nouveau drops. And I'm just going to place some drops in different sizes around this card and the sentiment. And I think it's a really good accent because I think the double denim matches the dark blue that's on the background. And I think, of course, the brown is pulling out the craft that I used. So, sorry I was up on high on my screen too. I'm not quite sure what was doing there. So those are the 5 cards that we made for part 2 of the Simon Says May 2018 card kit. I hope you did enjoy them. And know that anything that I did in this video for these cards, any of these techniques, can be used on other cards. If you have a pattern paper pad, if you have some puffy stickers or any type of stickers, some of your embossing powders and floral stamp sets. So anything you can use that's already in your stash if you should not have this kit. That's the beauty of card making. You can interchange. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. I'd love to have you as part of my group. If you have any questions or comments, I do encourage you to leave them down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. All the products that I used outside of this kit will be listed down below. And please, if I did forget something, because I usually do, please let me know and I will get you that link as quickly as possible. I hope everyone's having a great day, and always remember, be creative.